After watching this video, you will have a reason to thank God that you didn't skip it. I have sat with this revelation ever since it was sent to me to share on this platform, and today I'm going to share it with you. This is a testimony of Mr. Mark, a man who died and encountered Jesus. What Jesus showed him is something he can't keep to himself any longer. So if you are watching this, I encourage you to watch this video to the end, because this message is for you. Before I begin, please kindly let me know in the comment where you are listening from. That way we can connect as one family. Our prayer team will also want to commit you in the hands of God. Like this video and share with your loved ones. Now, I will begin sharing this testimony with you. There are 4 minutes missing from my life. 4 minutes where my heart did not beat, my lungs did not move, and every machine in that hospital room was screaming at the nurses to do something. And in those 4 minutes, I saw something that I have not been able to shake for even one single day since. I am not here to scare you. I am not here to sell you anything. I am here because I made a promise and I intend to keep it, even if my voice shakes the whole way through. My name is Mark. I'm 44 years old. Before any of this happened, I was about as ordinary as a man can be. I ran heating and air conditioning service calls for a small company outside of town. I coached my son's baseball team on Saturdays. I went to church on Sunday mornings. Most Sundays anyway, sat in the same pew, sang the same songs, shook the same hands, and went home and didn't think about God again until the next Sunday rolled around. I want you to understand that I wasn't a bad man. I wasn't running from God. I just wasn't running toward Him either. I was coasting. And if I'm honest with you right now, I think a lot of people watching this are coasting too. You don't have to be angry at God to be far from Him. Sometimes you're just busy. Sometimes you're just tired. That was me. I had chest pains for about 2 weeks before it happened. Little ones. The kind you tell yourself is heartburn because you don't want to deal with what it might actually be. My wife, Renee, kept telling me to go to the doctor. I kept telling her I'd go next week. Next week became next week again. And then one Tuesday afternoon, I was up on a ladder pulling a filter out of a unit on someone's roof, and it felt like somebody reached into my chest and closed a fist around my heart. I don't remember climbing down that ladder. I don't remember calling anybody. The next thing I actually remember is lying on the grass looking up at a sky that felt too bright, too white, like the sun had gotten closer somehow. A man I didn't know, the homeowner, was kneeling over me yelling into a phone. I could hear him, but it sounded like he was talking through water. And then everything just stopped. I want to tell you exactly what that moment felt like because I think about it every single day. It wasn't like falling asleep. It wasn't peaceful, not at first. There was a pressure, and then the pressure was gone all at once like a rubber band snapping. And I was standing. I was standing over my own body. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. But I was looking down at myself lying in that grass, my shirt torn open, a paramedic pressing down on my chest with both hands, counting out loud. And I remember thinking in this strange, calm way that didn't match the panic on everyone's faces, that's me, that's my body, but I'm not in it anymore. There was no fear in that thought. That's the part that still gets me. There should have been terror. Instead, there was this quiet, like someone had turned the volume down on the whole world. I didn't float up into some tunnel right away like people describe in the movies. First, there was just darkness, but it wasn't an empty darkness. It was thick like a blanket, and somehow I knew, the way you know things without being told them, that I wasn't alone in it. I want to be honest with you and tell you that for a few seconds, that darkness scared me more than anything I had ever felt in my life. Because I could feel the weight of every shortcut I had ever taken with God, every excuse, every "I'll go to church next week." It wasn't accusation exactly. It was more like clarity. Like finally seeing myself the way I actually was instead of the way I had been telling myself I was. And then, in the middle of that darkness, there was light. Not a light that flickered on like a switch. A light that grew, the way morning grows, until the darkness wasn't gone, but it didn't matter anymore, because the light was so much bigger. I moved toward it. I don't know if I walked or floated or was simply pulled, but I moved toward that light the way you move toward the sound of your name being called across a crowded room. And when I came through it, I wasn't in the dark anymore, and I wasn't on that lawn anymore either. I was somewhere else. And I need you to sit with me for a second here, because I've tried for months to find the words for this place, and I don't think English has them. It wasn't a place built out of gold streets and pearly gates like the pictures in Sunday school. It was simpler than that, and somehow more real than anything I had ever stood on with my own 2 feet. There was grass, if you could call it grass, but it moved like it was breathing. There was a sky, but there was no sun in it because the light wasn't coming from one direction. It was coming from everywhere, like the whole place was lit from the inside. And the colors, I don't have a word for the colors. They were colors I had never seen with my physical eyes, and yet somehow, standing there, I recognized every single one of them. Like I was remembering colors instead of seeing them for the first time. I heard something too before I saw him. I heard what I can only describe as singing, but it wasn't coming from one place. It felt like it was coming from the ground and the sky and the air all at the same time, low and wide and full. The kind of sound that doesn't just enter your ears, it enters your chest. I stood there in that field, whatever it was, and I just listened and I cried. I didn't decide to cry. It just happened, tears running down a face I didn't even have anymore, not really, and yet I felt them. That's when I saw him coming toward me. I want to be careful here, because I know some of you are going to want to argue with me about what he looked like, and I'm not going to argue with anybody about that. I'm just going to tell you what I saw. He didn't look like the pictures in my grandmother's Bible. His skin wasn't pale. It was warm, sun-colored, like a man who had actually worked outside, actually walked in the dust of a real place. His eyes were dark, and I want to tell you something about those eyes that I don't think I'll ever be able to explain right. When he looked at me, I didn't feel exposed the way you'd feel if a stranger were staring at you. I felt known, fully known. Every stupid thing I had ever done, every prayer I had mumbled through without meaning it, every time I told my wife I was too tired for church, and then spent that same hour scrolling on my phone. He knew all of it, and he kept walking toward me anyway. I fell down. I didn't mean to. My knees just gave out, the way they do sometimes in a dream, and I was on the ground in front of him with my forehead nearly touching whatever that ground was made of, and I was saying I was sorry. Over and over, even though I couldn't have told you in that moment exactly what I was sorry for. It was more than sin. It was the sorrow of realizing how small my life had been compared to what I was standing in front of, and he knelt down next to me. That's the part I don't think I'll ever get over. The king of everything, and he got down on the ground next to a heating and air conditioning repairman from a town nobody's ever heard of, and he put his hand on my back, and he said my name. Mark, that's it, just my name. But I have never in my life heard my name said like that. Not by my mother, not by my father, not by my own wife on our wedding day. There was no anger in it. No disappointment, just love. Love that had been there the whole time, whether I noticed it or not. Get up, he said. I didn't bring you here to punish you. I brought you here because there's something I need you to see. I got up slowly, because my legs still didn't feel steady, even though I don't think I actually had legs the way I understood them. He didn't say much else at first. He just looked at me, and there was something behind his eyes that I can only describe as a kind of sorrow, deep and old. Like a father who has been watching his children make the same mistake for a very long time, and still hasn't stopped hoping they'll turn around. "Walk with me," he said. So I did. I need to tell you before I go any further that what I'm about to describe isn't something I fully understood while it was happening. I want you to go through it the way I went through it, a little confused, a little slow to catch on, because that's the truth of what it was like. I wasn't handed a clear diagram. I was shown pieces, and I had to sit with them, and some of what I thought I was seeing turned out to be something else entirely. I think that's part of the lesson itself, if I'm honest. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We walked, and the field around us began to change. It didn't fade out like a movie scene. It was more like layers being pulled back, one at a time, the way you'd pull back curtains in a room you didn't know had more curtains behind the first ones. And what I started to see, underneath that first layer, were people, crowds of people. Thousands of them, and they were everywhere all at once, which I know doesn't make sense when I say it out loud, but that's how it felt. Like I was seeing all of them, and each one individually at the same time. At first, what I saw looked good. It looked like church. Big buildings packed full, hands raised, lights flashing, music so loud I could feel it in whatever was left of my chest. I saw a man standing on a stage, speaking with so much confidence, so much energy, that the whole crowd was leaning toward him like flowers leaning toward the sun. And I turned to Jesus and I said, without really thinking about it, "Look how many people are worshiping you." And he didn't answer right away. That silence is something I still think about. He just kept walking, kept watching, and there was that same sorrow in his face, deeper now. "Watch closely," he said, so I did. And the longer I watched, the more I started to notice things I had missed the first time. The man on the stage kept saying my name, not my actual name, but he kept saying "you" over and over. "You are blessed, you deserve this, you have the power." And every single time he said it. The crowd got louder, but I noticed something strange. I couldn't hear anyone say the name of Jesus. Not once. Not in the songs, not in the message, not in the prayers. It was there in the building's name on the sign outside. It just wasn't there in what was actually being said inside. "They're not lying about everything," Jesus said quietly, and that surprised me. I expected him to say the whole thing was fake. Instead, he said something that has stuck with me every single day since. That's what makes deception dangerous, Mark. It's rarely a lie standing all by itself. It's a lie wearing enough truth to walk through the front door without anyone stopping it. I didn't understand him at first. I thought maybe he meant the man on the stage was just a bad man doing bad things on purpose, and that would have been simple, wouldn't it? Simple to spot, simple to avoid. But that's not what he was showing me. He walked me a little further and showed me another place, smaller, quieter, a little church that looked almost like the one I grew up in. And the preacher there was talking about the end of the world. Wars, earthquakes, signs in the sky. And I felt this jolt of fear go through me because in the moment I thought that's what Jesus had brought me here to show me. I thought I was about to be handed a list of dates. I thought I was about to be told exactly when everything would happen, so I could go back and warn everybody with a countdown clock in my hand. I actually said it out loud. I turned to him and asked, "Is this it? Are you showing me when it's going to happen?" And he stopped walking. He turned and looked at me, and for the first time since I'd arrived, his voice had an edge to it, not cruel but firm. The way a father's voice gets firm when his child is about to step into traffic. "That is exactly the trap I need you to understand," he said. "Men have been guessing at dates and shouting about signs since the day I left the earth, and every single one of them has been wrong. And every single one of them pulled people's eyes away from the one thing I actually told them to watch for." "What's that?" I asked. "Their own hearts," he said. "Whether they were staying close to me or drifting, one small excuse at a time, the way you did for years without even noticing." That landed on me harder than anything else that day. Harder than the singing, harder than his eyes, harder than the shock of standing outside my own body. Because he wasn't wrong. I had spent years drifting one small excuse at a time, and if you had asked me, right up until that latter, I would have told you I was doing fine. He kept walking and the scenes kept shifting, and slowly I started to understand what he was actually trying to show me. It wasn't a prediction. It wasn't a map with a red X on some date on a calendar. It was a pattern. A pattern that he said had been unfolding since long before I was born, and would keep unfolding long after. And the danger was never going to be one single dramatic event that everyone would obviously recognize. The danger was going to be how ordinary it would look, how reasonable, how comfortable. I saw more of those crowds, and this time he let me get closer, close enough to see individual faces. And I want to tell you something about those faces that broke something loose in me. They weren't the faces of wicked people. They were tired faces, busy faces, faces like mine had probably looked for years. People who wanted comfort more than truth, and who had found teachers, plenty of them, more than willing to hand them comfort wrapped up in just enough scripture to make it feel safe. Many will come using my name, he said, and his voice had gone soft again, sad again. They will say the right words. They will even do things that look powerful, things that look like signs and wonders. And people will follow them because it is always easier to follow a voice that tells you what you want to hear than one that asks you to change. I asked him, because I didn't understand, how anyone was supposed to tell the difference. If it looked real, if it felt real, if the words sounded like they came from a Bible, how was a person supposed to know? He didn't answer with a formula. I sort of wanted him to. I wanted a checklist, 3 things to look for, a simple test I could hand out like a pamphlet. Instead, he asked me a question back, and I think that question was the whole point of everything I was being shown. Whose voice do you know, Mark? Not whose voice do you recognize? Whose voice do you know? The way a sheep knows the one who has fed it every single day. The way a child knows his own father's footsteps in the hallway, even in the dark. I didn't have an answer for him. And that silence was its own kind of answer, and it hurt more than anything a man had ever said to my face. He walked me a little further and the scene changed again, and this time it wasn't a stage or a stadium. It was quieter, smaller. I saw a woman alone in a small room, an old woman, with a Bible open on her lap that looked like it had been read so many times the cover had gone soft. She wasn't famous. Nobody was filming her. Nobody was clapping for her. She was just there, talking to God the way you talk to somebody sitting right next to you. And I felt something in that room that I hadn't felt in the stadium full of thousands of people. It was the same feeling I'd had the moment Jesus said my name. Quiet, real, solid. That is what I am actually looking for, he said. Not the loudest room, not the biggest crowd. I am looking for hearts that know me, that keep coming back to me even when no one else is watching, even when it costs them something, even when it isn't exciting. I stood there and I thought about my own life, about all those Sunday mornings where I sat in a pew and let the music wash over me and called that closeness. When really I hadn't talked to God, actually talked to him, in longer than I wanted to admit. And I felt ashamed, not the kind of shame that makes you want to hide, the kind that makes you want to change. Then he showed me something that I have to tell you was the hardest part of the whole experience, harder than anything before it, harder even than seeing my own body on that lawn. I saw a crowd of people standing in front of what I understood without being told was some kind of gate or a door, and they were confident. Some of them were smiling. I heard voices saying things like, "We did so much in your name, we spoke for you, we did powerful things because of you." And I braced myself because I thought I was about to see them welcomed in. Instead, I heard Jesus' voice, not cruel but final, saying that he never knew them, not that he had forgotten them, Not that they had made a mistake he was willing to overlook. That he never knew them at all, even after everything they had done in his name. I turned to him standing right beside me, and I was crying again, and I asked him how that was possible, how somebody could do all of that, say all of that, and still be a stranger to him. Because doing things for me is not the same as knowing me, he said. A man can build an entire life around my name and never once sit with me the way you're sitting with me right now. Religion can become its own kind of hiding place, Mark. People perform for a God they've never actually let close enough to change them. I don't think I've fully recovered from hearing that. I still think about it most nights before I fall asleep. He led me on a little further, and the ground beneath us changed again, and I saw something that I initially misread completely. And I want to be honest with you about that mistake because I think it matters. I saw screens, countless screens glowing in the dark, in bedrooms and living rooms, and in the palms of people's hands while they walked down streets not even looking up. And at first I thought Jesus was showing me technology itself as some kind of enemy, and I said something like that out loud, something about how maybe all of this, the phones, the constant noise, was the deception itself. He shook his head. The danger was never the tool, he said. It has never been the tool in any generation. It's what fills a heart that has stopped being still long enough to hear me. Noise has always been a hiding place for people who don't want to face what's actually going on inside them. Today it simply has more doors to hide behind than it used to. That hit me too, because I thought about how many nights I had scrolled on my phone in bed next to my sleeping wife instead of praying. How many mornings I had reached for my phone before I had even said good morning to God. It wasn't that the phone was evil. It was that I had let it become the thing I ran to instead of him, without ever once deciding to. I saw more after that, images I still find hard to put into words, but the theme, if you want to call it that, was always the same. Confusion dressed up as clarity, comfort dressed up as truth. Crowds mistaking noise for the presence of God, and quiet, faithful people, unnoticed by the world, who were actually the ones he kept calling his own. I asked him, standing there feeling smaller than I had ever felt in my life, what I was supposed to do with all of this. I told him I was scared. Not scared of him, scared of getting it wrong. Scared of being one of the ones standing in front of that gate someday, confident and wrong. He turned toward me fully then, and for the first time since I'd arrived, he smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It was gentle and a little sad, the way a father smiles at a son who has finally understood something important after years of missing it. Fear was never what I asked for, he said. I told my followers not to be troubled long before I ever warned them about difficult days coming. Watchfulness isn't the same as anxiety, Mark. I'm not asking you to live in fear of being deceived. I'm asking you to live close enough to me that deception has nothing to grab onto. He told me that the answer was never going to be complicated, even though the days ahead might be. He told me to test everything I hear against what he has already said, not against how good it makes me feel, not against how many people are clapping in the room. He told me that love, real love, patient and humble and willing to be corrected, was going to be one of the rarest things left standing by the time all of this played out. And that the people who kept it, who refused to let it go cold even when everything around them got colder, those were the ones he called faithful. He told me to pray, not the kind of prayer you recite out of habit, but the kind that woman in the small room had been praying, the kind that actually expects someone on the other end to be listening. He told me that repentance wasn't a single moment I could check off a list. It was a direction, a daily turning back toward him every time I noticed I drifted. The way I drifted for years without ever really noticing. And then he said something that I have turned over in my mind every single day since, and I don't think I'll ever stop turning it over. He said, "The narrow road has always looked less impressive than the wide one, Mark. It always will. That has never changed and it never will. Don't be surprised when staying close to me looks small next to everything the world is going to offer you instead." I felt the ground shift under me while he was still speaking, and I panicked. Because I wasn't ready to leave. I told him that. I said, "I don't want to go back." And he took my face in his hands, the way you'd hold the face of someone you loved and were about to say goodbye to for a while, not forever, just for now. And he said, "You're not finished yet. There's work for you to do and people who need to hear what you saw here. Go and tell them the truth gently. Don't frighten them into me. Love them into me." And then everything went white and loud and hard all at once, like being shoved through a doorway I wasn't ready to go through. I woke up in a hospital bed with a tube down my throat and my wife's hand wrapped around mine so tight it hurt. And I remember the first thing I felt wasn't relief. It was grief. I had been somewhere I didn't want to leave, and I was angry for about a day that I was back here in a body that ached in places I didn't know a body could ache. The doctors told me later that my heart had stopped for almost 4 minutes on that lawn, and again for a shorter time in the ambulance, and that by every normal measure. I shouldn't be telling you this story right now at all. I'm not the same man who climbed that ladder. I wish I could tell you the change was instant and total, and that I've been perfect ever since, but that wouldn't be honest, and I promised myself I'd be honest with you all the way through this. What changed is smaller than a lightning bolt and bigger than I can really explain. I read my Bible now like it's a letter from someone I actually know, not a book I'm supposed to have read. I pray before I pick up my phone in the morning instead of after. I go to church, and it's the same building, the same people, but something in me is different when I walk through those doors, because now I'm not there to be seen. I'm there because I finally understand what it means to actually know the one I'm singing to. And I think about that gate a lot. I think about all those confident voices standing in front of it. I think about how easy it would have been for me to keep coasting, to keep mistaking activity for closeness, comfort for truth, noise for peace, right up until it was too late to do anything about it. I don't say that to scare you. I say it because somebody needed to say it to me, and nobody ever did, not clearly, not until I was standing outside my own body hearing it from the only voice that has ever actually mattered. If you're watching this and some part of you recognizes what I'm describing, that quiet drifting, that Sunday morning routine that never quite turns into a real relationship, I'm asking you gently, the way I was asked, to stop and turn around. Not out of fear, out of love, because that's genuinely what's waiting on the other side of turning around. I'm not telling you I know when anything is going to happen in this world, and honestly, I'd be lying to you if I claimed I did. Nobody does. That was actually one of the clearest things I was shown. What I do know is what I was told to tell you, so I'm telling you. Test the voices you're listening to. Get quiet enough to hear the real one. Let love, patient, humble, unimpressive love, be the thing you hold onto tighter than anything else, right up until the day you're standing in front of that gate yourself. I don't know how much time any of us have. Nobody does, and anybody who tells you otherwise is exactly the kind of voice I was warned about. But I know this, he is not far from you. He was not far from me, even in the years I wasn't looking for him. And he is still saying the same thing he said to me on that field. Thank you for listening to this very point. If you know my message blessed you, please don't leave without liking this video so that more people will find this video. Please share this video to as much as people who you know. Thank you, and may God continue to bless you.